We are here for our Women Tell All recap, the first in Golden Bachelor history, of course. But first we must start with where we left off last week, the final rose. As a reminder, Leslie got the first one, Teresa and Faith are left. Gary, he's outside trying not to vomit, then he comes inside and he's now trying not to vomit. Then someone clearly tells Jesse what's going on because he stops watching the football game, comes out, checks on Gary, asks him if he knows what he wants to do. Gary says yes, he does. Just doesn't want to do it. So again, I'm thinking, well, Teresa's out because Teresa's obsessed with him. And then that's it. That's because that's their teaser that they always have to hit us with at the beginning of every episode. I should have seen it coming. And we go immediately to live, the Women Tell All. So out walks Jesse to the live studio audience, just walks into the limelight where the ghost of Chris Harrison will always remain. And I apologize if I seem a little bit obsessed with Chris Harrison. I'm still a Jesse virgin to all of this stuff. So this is my first season with him, and I'm not used to him as a live host, let alone the host of the whole show. But Jesse reveals to us that the lady going home will not be found out until a little bit later on. Do we think that there will be drama at the Women Tell All? Should there be? No. But is Kathy there? Yes. So we shall see. Some other notable cast here is Patty, who is Matt's mom. She's not notable, but she has to be because she was like their golden nugget that didn't make it past night one. And let me just tell you, she also gets 0 airtime on the Women Tell All. Why is she there? She's there for no good reason. My guess is she had some like special contract. Guaranteed airtime, $5,000 for Matt. Not sure, but she doesn't need to be there. But also we have Joan. Joan is the woman that went home early because of her daughter. April, Sandra, Susan, and obviously Ellen, who went home last week, which so did Susan, right? Is that it? Wait, who went home last week? Oh, 2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago. That's why I'm thrown off. Okay, back to normal programming. All of the women are dressed just impeccably. They outdo the young contestants for sure. I feel like that's a hands down. In reality, a lot of these younger women make very questionable hair and wardrobe choices, especially hair. Even the ones that are about to be announced as Bachelorette. But everyone here has got just class. Some clean lines, simplicity, elegance, beauty. The show starts off with just a nice recap of the season, a little video montage. Night one, pickleball, which was a popular hot topic of the day. Kathy and Teresa, which was the only drama in the whole show. Which, by the way, while they're showing the videos of this, Kathy in her little live preview bubble cannot stand to watch it. You can tell that she's humiliated, which is a good sign, I think. And then we just get some nice heartwarming interviews of all the women talking about finding love in your golden years. It was very cute and paired with some good background music again. It really adds a little something. Music is the way to the soul. Now there are a lot of just individual questions that Jesse asks each one of the women, so I don't want to go through every single one of them because it's not really worth it. But some notable things. Susan said, guys, we love Susan. Comic relief in every way, except she's beautiful, so not like she's funny looking. Anyway, Susan said that if she knew that her son was going to be mad at her for what she said when she came out of the limo, she would have instead said she was comfortable with 8 inches as opposed to 6. And Jesse again mentioned Sandra diving headfirst into the crowd in pickleball. I repeat, she did not dive. She crashed, collided. Maybe generationally she took a dive. Okay, I'll give her that, especially because season's almost over. Also mentioned was April's fake injury. Dude, I messed this up. While I was watching it, I knew it was April. But then at the end of the episode, it was Nancy who was in the ankle brace. So I'm like, wow, how did I mess that up? The whole time I thought it was April faking an injury, but it was Nancy. No, it really was April. That threw me the F off. So I apologize for that. I completely screwed up that recap. But most important thing in this little section of the episode, Kathy clears the air. First, she gets support from all the other women who come to her defense saying that she has a heart of gold. She admits that she's a straight shooter, but that she should have been a bit more delicate and that maybe they both should have zipped it. And Kathy is back on my good side. All villains diminished. I knew this was the show. It's nothing can beat it. It's the best. Wholesome love, bunch of broken hearts, one polygamist, right? How do you beat that? Young Bachelor contestants, please take note because it's not hard to be mature unless you're like 6 or 7, but you're 25. Then we get a little preview of the women's diet, or eating habits, I should say, in the mansion. Jesse says some women were good cooks, some were not, which leads us to a clip of Susan saying that whatever she ate is causing deadly excretions from her body. Silent killers, she calls them, so I think we all know what that means. And she blames it on Edith's guacamole. As a reminder, Edith, to me, was always just the very zen, natural, fairy of the forest type woman. So maybe this checks out in some roundabout way. Doesn't it seem like the all-natural foods will give you gas? Then we see a private conversation with Susan and Gary. And Susan, she makes like this secret confession to him that she has terrible gas. And Gary cracks up. Susan laughs. Everybody in the audience is like, I'm laughing. It's just a great time. Don't you just love Susan? So now we get into some talks about how inspirational the women are, how it's not too late and to get up and live. And I love it. It's heartwarming. It's wholesome. It's just everything wonderful. Like I can't stop saying. So far this episode, I really don't have anything that I can pick on people for. I'm just feeling like I love them all and I hope that they invite me over for pasta. But here's where things change. Jesse says he has a video to show of somebody who, also was really inspired by this season. It's like this big reveal. And you know who it is? It's Kris Jenner. So first of all, we already have one of those. Her name is Susan. We don't need another one. Okay. Second of all, why must we taint this perfect reunion with a Kardashian? Don't we get enough of them in day-to-day life? I have Kylie's lip gloss. My sister has some Skims. Now let's move on. Yes, I understand that doesn't help my case. But basically, Kris is just saying how much she loved this season, and then she shouts out Susan, obviously, for her style and for her hair, which is the exact same as hers. And Susan's a little bit smitten. She has tears coming out of her eyes. Whatever. So first person to come in the hot seat is Joan, who left prematurely because of her daughter's pregnancy situation. Let me just throw this out here before I get into things. I don't think I like Jesse. It's not like he's the worst thing ever. He doesn't make me want to boycott the season like Vanessa Lachey sometimes does with Love is Blind, but he doesn't feel sincere. He gives me the vibes that he's there for his paycheck and he'll put on the show, but then he goes home and just makes fun of the whole thing with his bros, which I bet Kris did too, but in a different way, a little witty banter, but with an air of respect. He's fine. There are worse options, I guess. I'm trying to be positive. Anyway, Joan comes out and we get her video recap of her time on the season. Also from this recap, sorry, another side note, I think I realized that Gary gives me Muppet vibes because he kind of seems like he could be on Sesame Street, like one of the people that comes out and gently talks about how it's important to say you're sorry and that if you forget your numbers, you can always rely on the count. But we find out that Joan's daughter had some really tough postpartum depression, and Joan just knew, she could tell in her voice that she had to go home. But that everyone's doing well now, which is good. Not really, however, but it appears that Joan really struggled with leaving Gary because she saw a future with him. And the way that he reacted to her leaving was just another indication that he is the type of guy that she would want to be with. And she thought that they had a chance. So it's sad that she had to leave early. I wonder if Gary has any thoughts like that. I kind of get the impression that he's very just in the moment, doesn't necessarily dwell too much. Is that true? I think it's true. Obviously, it's different being heartbroken over your wife that passed away, but to cry all the time, I would say you pretty much live in the moment. But anyway, after Joan comes Ellen, and her video recap is a little bit heart-wrenching, and she's getting emotional watching it back. One noteworthy thing here is she mentions how Gary showed her how she could fall in love again and have happiness, and how she can't wait to get started, which could be a setup for her as a Golden Bachelorette. She does seem to be a crowd favorite. I'm thinking it won't be her, but this setup is there. And then we get a really sad story about her friend Roberta. Roberta's famous. She talked about her throughout the whole entire season, how she was sick with cancer. Her friend ends up passing away before the season airs, and they were supposed to watch the first episode together, but when Ellen came home, Roberta was basically in a coma, and Ellen was encouraging her to let go. It was so sad. Jesse had tears as she was sharing it. I don't know if they were real or if they were manufactured in order to keep his job, but it was nevertheless a very touching story. But now Gary finally makes his appearance, and of course he gets a standing ovation and a Gary chant. When he comes out, he's clean shaven. Looks like he has slightly longer hair, but that could just be Bachelor styling. They really botched someone's hair one time. I can't remember who it was, but it was so bad that after a commercial break, when he came back out, his hair was different. Gary's hair was not botched. That was just something I remembered. Jesse asks him how he felt about kissing all those women on night one with his granddaughters watching, and Gary says, well, granddaughters be damned. Does it really matter? Anyway, at some point in the season, you're going to be kissing women, and they're going to see it. Also, hopefully his granddaughters don't watch my recaps with the amount of times that I've talked about the little blue pill. I do use code words though. And we get a quick shot of Sandra giving him accolades for his just very gentlemanly demeanor and how because of him, she is more motivated than ever to find her guy. And listen, this is going to sound bad, especially after all their talk about finding love at their age. But now that they've been on this show, are these 22 women making it a high priority to find a guy? And is it going to be disappointing if they don't? Will they have to like throw in the towel at some point? I know life's all about perspective and whatnot, but I just wonder if this show kind of puts them in a place of false hope, or could it set them up for failure is really what I'm getting at. But if you have good perspective, it should be okay, right? This is going to be the end of my Debbie Downer spiel. That was my SNL Debbie Downer face. Okay, let's move on. Joan and Ellen, now that Gary's out, they say what they feel they need to say to him, which is nothing bad. It's all very positive. Gary mostly just smiles and nods very warmly, just without words, just like you would see on Sesame Street. And then he closes it off with a very inspirational speech, just like you would see on Sesame Street. Anyone else notice that he kind of like, it's almost like he's mouthing the words as the women are speaking? Not that he knows what they're going to say, but I feel like he's moving his mouth with their mouth as it moves. Pay attention to that next week. I'm a noticer. Then Jesse asks him what it was like to send someone home after hometowns. And Gary describes it as terrible, of course, but physically like an elephant is just sitting on his chest. And I think someone should tell him that that's a key indicator of a heart attack. But now we return to the mansion, finally, where we are back at the rose ceremony. And they show a shot of Gary backstage at the Women Tell All, pacing back and forth as if he has no idea that there's a camera on him. But Mansion Gary is back to his cursing. He's keeled over, just a reminder that he could be having a heart attack at this moment, but he is alive, so everything seems to have worked out. But he finally makes it back out to the women, apologizes, said this is really tough, picks up the rose. Music is getting louder, crescendo is going up, and the rose goes to Teresa. You guys, I wish so bad you could have been here while I was watching this live. I yelled out pretty loudly, no way, with some laughter, some like, I cannot believe it laughter. I was so wrong. This isn't even like a, I can't believe you picked Teresa thing, because if you remember from their very first date, I thought that they looked like they would make a good match. It's because I was positive Faith was the one he was going to pick. I would have put so much money on it. Also, how many times this season has the final rose gone to Teresa? It has to be at least 3. There have only been 7 episodes. But man, this show just loves to throw you off. Touche. Normally, I can figure things out. I didn't see this one coming. But what a shock for Faith. How are you going to say you love her like that in front of all of her family? That was the most confusing. Like I said, Gary lives in the moment, but he walks her out. They say their goodbyes, and neither of them are crying. Gary, the crier, is not crying. Faith cries when she gets into the limo, but Gary is kind of stoic. How, Gary? You love to cry. In Faith's live preview bubble over at the Women Tell All, you can see that she is very upset. Faith in the limo is very confused, says she's not sure that she'll ever figure out why this happened, why it played out like this. I don't know that I will either. Gary, yeah, you know what? Let's hear it. Let's go back to the Women Tell All where we find Faith. Okay, she's in the hot seat wearing a chesty little number. Good for you, girl. And she's very upset, like cannot stop crying, upset. She says it's gut-wrenching to watch back. Jesse says he's shocked she went home. So there's one sincere thing. I don't know anyone who wouldn't be shocked unless they like looked up spoilers. So 1 point for Jesse. You gained 1 single point back. Faith says her first thought when she went home was her poor family and how they were going to be heartbroken for her. She just couldn't let them be heartbroken. And then also her confusion with how they went from such this great connection to absolute absolutely nothing at all. Oh, poor Faith. I felt for her bad. So Gary's about to come out, but I am just thrown off a little bit here. He must actually feel for Teresa. You know, it's that, or he got rid of Faith because he knows he wants to choose Leslie, and his feelings for Faith might just muddy the waters a bit. Gosh, you guys. This whole time, I'm like, there's no way he ends up with Teresa just based on the way that he talks about all the other women. And now I'm thinking it might be Teresa. I clearly don't understand the minds of the elderly. But out he comes, and I feel like the audience should be booing him, but of course they're not, because, well, I do think that they like him, but I also think the show wouldn't allow that. Someone's in the corner with a sign saying, "Cheer." Please. But as they, oh my gosh. This was the most emotional episode. He comes out, they hug each other, and they are both just bawling. I mean, you can picture how Gary looks. He's done it the whole season. Should have done that the night he sent her home. But Faith is actually sobbing. Like, I have the subtitles on, and it said sobbing, which she was. Women in the chairs also getting very emotional. I wonder what this is like for someone like Ellen, who loved him, to watch someone be so heartbroken over your boyfriend who you were just heartbroken over. That's so weird. I'm trying to like put myself in those shoes, and I think I would just be mad. But this is not your average day-to-day life problem. So, I don't know, but Gary and Faith finally sit down. Faith talks first, and she struggles not to touch him. So sad. I wonder how long it had been since they broke up to now. But she talks, of course, about the heartbreak and the confusion, but also how she never knew that she could feel so safe with someone. And this reminds me about the time that he told her she was safe with him, and he lied. Gary, what? Gary! He tells her he genuinely did love her in all of those moments, but that when he had 3 indescribably wonderful women, he had to choose the one that was right for him. It's like if they met up on the street in some, without this dumb show, it would have been happily ever after, as it would have with, I'm sure, any number of the women. But because he's got pick of the litter, she goes home. Guys, I was crying. I don't do Bachelor tears most of the time, except for maybe when Ben sent JoJo home. I feel like that was sad. I remember it being an instance where I was really mad that he didn't pick her. But Faith just straight brought out the waterworks for me. And Gary admits that he broke a promise with her family when he said he promised he would protect her heart, and he did not. Faith is very forgiving, says her family probably understands, and then they tell each other how they are better people because they met one another, and everything is so sweet. This conversation is just like, I'm engulfed in it. And then Jesse cuts for commercial. You know what, Jesse? If you didn't care about your job so much, you could have let them keep talking. And I know Faith had more she wanted to say, but she just couldn't, because she ran out of time. Another thing you don't get in the real world. Oh no, I know that you want some answers as to why I broke up with you, but unfortunately, we have to go to commercial. And when we come back, you'll be gone. Wish that was alcohol. I'm just sad for Faith and wonder if Faith will ever have faith again. But thank goodness at the end of that they bring out the bloopers, because I could not handle anymore. And they were great bloopers, to the extent that I feel like you should just go and watch them if you didn't see them rather than me recap them, because that doesn't do it any justice. Except Sandra's fart. She lets out a huge, I mean, it was animated, theatrical, like it did not seem real. In the midst of an interview, she just lifted a cheek, let it rip. Couldn't not mention that one. But then we conclude with a preview of next week's episode. Turns out it's not the finale. And to me, this is lame. It should be the finale. I get the 1-hour episodes. You don't have as much time. Make it 2 hours, okay? We don't need Bachelor in Paradise. But we find out they're in Costa Rica, which is the first travel destination if you don't count hometowns. There are fantasy suites, which Gary says people his age still knock boots. And now that it's here, I kind of wish it was never talked about, because now I have to picture it. There is talk of coitus. He is in love with 2 women, of course. And there is no preview of the proposal, because the finale is not next week. It's the week after. And that wraps up week 7. The Women Tell All. It was a good episode. It was a really good one. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next week for the not finale.